Central causes, I assume.
All right, I've got 6. I'm going to go ahead and call to order this meeting, the Danville School District Board of Directors regular meeting. It's February 6th, 2024, 6 o'clock. My name is Clayton Cargill. I'm the board chair. I've got 3 other board members in the room. The superintendent's remote. We'll introduce ourselves around the room. I'm going next to Dave.
Dave Toll, Vice Chair.
Molly.
Molly Gleason Clark.
Tim Sanborn, board member.
Melissa Conley won't be joining us. I have 2 building principals here,
Sarah Welch, elementary principal. Natalie Conway, secondary principal.
and I have Mark on Zoom. Mark,
Mark Tucker, Superintendent.
that's everybody who's here. We have 1 member of the public, Eric Hewitt, who's on our building committee, and we're going to start the meeting. Before I go forward, are there any additions or changes to this agenda? I hadn't heard of any. I don't have any myself. Moving on, we have to approve 2 sets of minutes. They're both related to the budget. The first one, the January 2nd meeting, was our regular meeting in January where we also discussed the budget at length. The second one was January the 11th, and it is a special meeting about the budget. Did all the board members in the room have a chance to go over these? Were there any questions about the minutes? Molly submitted them. I reviewed them. They got posted. They've been up for a month. If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve both sets of these minutes.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of January 2nd, 2024, January 11th, 2024, as presented.
2 sets of minutes.
I'll second.
I have a second, I have a motion and a second to approve 2 sets of minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor of approving those 2 sets of minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, well, motion carries. All right. We're gonna move on. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it over to Mark for a second. There's a ton of legislation that he might want to update us on. I don't know if anything was relevant, but on the back page of his superintendent's report, there's just a sheaf of items that might affect various schools in the district, and you might need to tell us how some of these affect Danville. So the floor is gonna be yours, Mark, if you need to tell us anything.
Okay, so House Ways and Means had a hearing this afternoon around Act 127. I got a bunch of stuff that came in about 4:30, 5 o'clock this afternoon from Jeff Francis at BSA. I have not read it, so I don't know if they've reached any conclusion or if they took a motion to recommend the elimination of the 5% pre-CLA cap. I'm still expecting them to do that if they haven't done it yet. And let's see, the other things on here specifically relating to Danville, H630 is an interesting piece of legislation. If any of you are familiar with education law in New York and Massachusetts, they have something called BOCES, it's Board of Cooperative Education Services. This is Vermont's version of the BOCES Act. It was written and submitted by Rebecca Holcomb, former Secretary of Education. The idea here is to create a mechanism by which multiple districts could join together in a consortium of sorts to do things on a larger scale that are hard to do on individual district small scale. So just some examples, and this is not anything that we've committed to, and we don't know if the bill's going to pass, but we could get in. We could, if there's a BOCES for Caledonia County, we might get into a single contract for purchasing food from a food supplier. Whether that's a good idea or not, I'm not saying. I'm just using that as an example. It could also address something that we've talked about a number of times over the years: the ability to create a shared alternative school environment without having to change the governance structure for any of the districts. So it's still in the, I would say, still in the draft phase. I've got a couple of not really concerns, but the way it's drafted, it says there would only be one BOCES per county in Vermont, and a district could only join one BOCES. And I've already raised this with the vice chair of House Education that may not work for us or for any district where the district or the SU crosses county boundaries. So they're aware of that, and there's a couple different ways they could do that. They could either say you could belong to more than one BOCES, or they could say that get rid of the county restriction. I don't know what they're going to do. And I don't have a sense yet of whether this is going to get any traction. I would say that the House of Representatives has been consumed with Act 127 work. That's almost all that they've. A lot of what's the focus so far in this first 4 weeks of the session has been around fixing Act 127. So we'll see what happens. H716 career and technical education, not directly affecting us as far as I can tell at this point, but this is one of these things that the governor says he supports career and technical education, and they did a study, and there's all kinds of great recommendations, but like a lot of things in Vermont, that it's, I don't know where the money's going to come from to do this. I would tell you this is like the Barry Tech Center turns away about 50% of their applicants every year that want to get career and technical education there because they don't have capacity. So there's a real need for it in Vermont. The literacy bill that's coming around. There's a couple of things in it that are questionable. I mean, I think the intent is good, but I'm waiting for a rewrite of the bill or a major revision to come out or comment on that. Proposed changes to the open meeting law, which would instantiate what we're already doing, which is require, instead of allowing, it would be requiring both a public in-person presence and a hybrid presence for meetings. So that would just carry forward what's in temporary legislation that's going to expire on July 1st. And the cell phone bill, I pray that this gets killed or completely rewritten, because the language that's been put into it. I don't think it's going to solve the problem. One, it also disallows the use of cell phones in buildings by adults. And then it creates all these kind of opt-out provisions on technology that says family can say, I don't want my child to use any electronic devices in school. And if they opt out, there's language in the bill that says that, oh, and by the way, for those students, you have to set up a work area for them where they are isolated from exposure to electronic devices that other students are using. I mean, it just is insane. And last week at the BSA all members meeting, we took a straw poll there, and 100% of the superintendents in attendance said, no, this bill should not go through as drafted. So I don't know that I don't think it's going to get anywhere. It's one of those, the camel is a horse designed by a committee, and they just threw a bunch of stuff in it that doesn't make any sense. The last thing that I'll mention is that I am invited into a meeting tomorrow to talk about what Agency of Natural Resources wants to do regarding funding PCB remediation, which could have an impact on Danville School, because they're proposing right now that they not fund remediation in school locations where the PCBs are not impacting direct instruction. So I've got some real questions around how that's going to work. A, because there's Act 78 of 2023 said the state would pay for 100% of the cost. And B, as far as I know, there's no regulatory off ramp. If the state doesn't fund the PCB remediation, I'm concerned that at some point the EPA or DEC is going to come to the district, to Danville, and say, okay, now you've got to go fix your PCB problem, and we don't have any money for it, so you've got to absorb the cost for it. And I don't know what it's going to cost to remediate PCBs in Danville yet, because we still don't have corrective action plan. So I don't know what's involved, but it flies in the face of what the legislature has said about funding PCB remediation in Vermont. So we'll see what happens with that.
I have one question related to Act 127.
Yeah.
We have to operate in Danville here as if the law, as it's written, is the law. And whatever they tell us, we're not going to be able to, before town meeting, really make any drastic changes to our warning now. So probably, it's going to be difficult to get a quorum if we wait, if anything, any longer to make any changes to the budget or push the budget out It says in what they sent us this afternoon, it says that they're gonna consider tomorrow. Allowing the Ways and Means Committee only to allow the postponement of votes. So that you can readjust your budgets minus the cap, but. I think that our opportunity in Danville is to sit at our informational meetings the two that we have scheduled and we'll talk about and at town meeting. And explain what's going on to the voters, rather than go back through and back out, because that's our best chance to get the most votes, I would think, at town meeting. So do you think your advice would be to us that we're gonna operate as if we're voting on town meeting day on the warrant article?
I think at this point, because I don't think you can start planning for any changes until you're given the authority to push the date out. And what I've said to the other district boards that I've already discussed this with is wait and see what they actually do regarding the cap, and if they actually allow you to extend your election date, and then we'll have a conversation about whether with the board can have a conversation on whether it is wise or not to do that. And you just stated a reason, Clayton, if I understood you, that why you don't think that would make sense in Danville, and that it may or may not make sense. I don't have a position on that. I don't see any purpose in wrapping ourselves around the axle until we know what we're actually allowed to do.
All right, Dave, to ask a question.
I think we should be prepared. That is the first question. Because it's hot in the news right now.
The first
Are
question,
we taking advantage of any money under Act 127?
okay, so you mean the first question at an informational meeting?
I believe that's going to be one of the first ones that the public will ask us. Are you taking advantage?
Okay, so in the answer for Danville is that you discuss it and you purposely decided not to add additional spending into your budget to take advantage. Where the taking advantage part comes in is if you had added spending to run the increase in your per pupil ed spending costs for this year up to like the 9.9% level, and then have it capped at 5%. We talked about this 2 meetings ago or a meeting ago, and you all decided we're not going to do that. Okay, so I think we can look at the community straight face and say we did not do anything with the spending at Danville School to take advantage of that loophole in Act 127. So I think, we have clean hands. Actually, in all of the districts in CCSU, we didn't purposely try to take advantage of that loophole. It is true though, Dave, that Danville would have benefited slightly from the 5% free CLA cap, so there will be an impact on the homestead tax rate. And I sent that memo out at the end of last week or over the weekend that explained and showed in the table what would happen to each of the districts if they eliminate the cap. And I can put that up on the screen if you want to look at it right now.
Go ahead.
Would you like me to do that?
Sure.
Okay,
I guess maybe we'll go back to what you talked about. Is we're going to talk ourselves in circles over something we don't know the answer.
Okay,
For sure.
that's
Let's
fine.
not make the laws before we talk about walking into the weeds.
Don't do a
Okay.
sticker shock.
So
Okay.
we'll move on.
Thank you, Mark.
I got talked out of that. And that's fine. It's good. No, it makes sense.
Okay.
Okay. Any further questions for the superintendent? And again, thanks for listening. I needed some of those legislative updates. I haven't had a chance to talk about some of that stuff. We've been talking about other things. Moving on, student services report. This one came in from Ann Landry, as you see. Any questions about the student services report, you can get back to Ann, or you can ask Mark now. Moving on, principal's report. Nice. It's a lot of good updates. I like it. And I like getting a lot of updates on the kids. It really is helpful. It's helpful to know what's going on. It's helpful to know who's doing what and who needs to be praised and how much fun it is.
Yeah. I wanted to highlight, we've got another really big preschool class coming in. We know that because they all wanted to come here as 3-year-olds. So we're working through that. And have already posted just to get names and reconfirm and to see if anybody else comes out that we don't have on our list. And then the other piece is, and it ties to not directly ties, but it's hand in hand with the literacy
Mhm.
bill that's coming right now, but we are actively working with the SUs to figure out a reading curriculum that will support our kids K-8. And that'll be a tremendous shift that I've been working towards for several years now here. That will be a lot of work and it'll take a lot of commitment. And some financial stuff, I'm sure, but it will be a huge benefit to our kids. So, but that's coming.
So right now, there isn't a consistent curriculum K-8 in place at all.
Nope.
That's okay. Good necessary change.
Any questions for the principals? Good job snagging Malcolm. Bad for the Craig community, good for the.
I know,
Right,
right?
thank you for
Yeah,
that. Thank you
I think
for-
his Craig community is still doing fine.
All right,
It's
It
good
is
for
good.
them.
That was a nice change. And again, he's a familiar face. It's
Yeah.
really good. And we're glad, I'm happy to see it.
Nobody's here.
Yeah, very glad to have him.
All right, so that's it. In board business, I have just some things that we went, we had the NASDAQ reporting data that went out. I wanted to make this public. That's why it's here. I'm not sure there's much to talk about unless anybody has any questions, but the document is attached to the agenda. It'll go public. So we have that data. That's what we're working on with NASDAQ. And I wasn't sure, Mark, where we were on, the schedule with the architects. I hadn't got.
I gotta pick that back up again because I had reached out initially to a few people, that you asked me to try to connect with, and a couple people got back and a couple people didn't, and then they kind of fell off my radar. So I will reconnect on getting that set up. And I think, maybe have a conversation with you offline about what do we do if we can't get all of those people to line up.
Sure.
You know, who are
It's-
the key people that need to be in that meeting? And I don't mean that to exclude anybody, but you know how hard it is to get people together.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, I've got a sticky note on my computer at the office, one of 20 or so, that says get the architect thing going again. So.
All right, and then Sarah had one thing about the NASDAQ report, it looks like.
Yeah, the only thing with the NASDAQ report is the projections going forward. So with specifically looking at preschool, so we know that I think 22 of them are headed into kindergarten because they're almost all 4-year-olds. And so going forward, at least for next year, that number also should be like a 23, 24 going down that column, because I think what it's looking back at is when we were split between 3 and 4-year-olds, and we're back at only 4-year-olds. And I don't know when that's gonna shift, like much beyond next year specifically, but that's the small shift for projections, but it's just something to think about that it is.
This is the case like where Eric presented his document
Yeah.
at the other meeting and said, we don't know, we know it's wrong, but we're not all the way sure where it's wrong. So this
Yeah.
is where we can tweak. Let's see, having this data here is going to be easier to work with going forward.
Yeah.
And-
Mark, is this the data that gets sent to the state? Like, will that correlate? Is it a
I
similar?
don't know where they get their data from. So I can't answer that question.
Do you guys send data to the state?
In October.
I mean, there's data that's part of like state collection stuff for
Okay.
attendance and things like
That
that.
October
Yeah,
enrollment?
Yeah,
it
that
just
one.
Right.
goes like they send it, yeah.
And yours, Mark, was current enrollment at the time that you sent the information to NASDAQ?
Yes.
Okay.
What
so
I
maybe
sent to
right.
them, I pulled off of Power School. For our current
Okay.
enrollment.
Yeah, that's helpful to know, just in case that question comes up, if somebody's looking on the database and.
Yeah.
And yours, Eric, your data came from the state website, right?
Yeah, it looks like it's,
Similar, okay.
yeah, it's the
Yeah,
exact same.
I would say to everybody that the state AOE website may be the least reliable source of data on pretty much
Okay.
a lot of things. We spent a lot of time going back to them and saying, well, where did you get this number? Oh, okay, wait a minute, we'll change it. So I understand why people would, it'd be nice if you could go to the AOE website and see all the data that you'd ever want to know about Danville School, but I don't trust it.
Okay, well, that's good to know.
Well, they take a snapshot, you have
Right.
to send it on
Right.
October first, but we've had how many
Right.
kids move in and stuff since
Yeah.
then, and it doesn't.
Right,
And this is
Um,
just numbers that you have here, it's total heads in the building per grade. It's not, obviously not residents and tuition and. Okay.
right, it's based on Danville residents and kids.
Nope. It's all
Well,
students.
no, wait a minute. So part of the data collection that I submitted to them included a count of students that we have tuitioned in by grade level, so they know those numbers,
Okay,
yeah.
looked like they were, included, right? It looked like, yeah.
They are in the
Yeah.
total, like overall classes and stuff, but they wouldn't be included in projections. So that's the
Okay,
tricky part.
that's
So
true.
that's, so like when you're projecting forward, that's my assumption at least, and I don't know, Mark, if you know for sure, but.
Yeah,
number-
I think there's a few things like, what I would suggest that we do, is collect a few questions and then either send them to NESDAQ or we'll sit down and have a conversation with them, to get some clarification. This is all brand new. I can tell you that when the first, when the first report came in, there was a miscount on middle school, and I sent them back the corrected numbers and they updated the projections like in an hour. So, whatever they're using for a system is, it's pretty responsive on their end. So, and then the question, Sarah's comment about pre-K, that's a really good question. I don't know to what extent they differentiate between 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds when they're looking at those projections. So we should have that conversation with them as well.
But it definitely like doesn't, if you look at page 4 and the longitudinal growth.
Yeah.
So it has the same amount. That top, the 24-25 kindergarten class all the way down. Typically, we get anywhere from 4 to 8 kids in middle school, plus more into high school too, and it
Mhm.
doesn't factor those in. It just keeps the Danville kids all the way. So that's the piece.
question, right?
That's the piece
Yeah.
a piece I wondered about too.
Yeah, because I assumed that chart was based off of just births.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that's the,
And that would be a good question for them and
Yeah.
just to make sure they know we have this tuition cohort of kids. Do we include that? Do we do a separate chart showing them included and another one with just Danville
yeah, that'd
residents?
be interesting.
Just to see the comparison. Right, because we don't really we do collect the tuition kid data with that October enrollment report,
Yeah.
but we'd have to go through all the minutes.
Right,
probably
but we
to
don't
find
look
that.
at it year to year.
Right, it's not shown in a,
Well, Mike has it.
Mike has all that, the
Mike-
tuition kids, number of tuition kids every
Sure.
year?
Finance they know because they get paid.
Right, that's
Okay.
right,
You can get
Okay.
finance.
we-
so that
we
would be
collect-
something to give them,
Sometimes.
yeah,
Right.
and not that we want to get
Mike,
too in the weeds with it, but if, just to break that down would be helpful, I think, for clarity.
Okay, so that's that one and that's that one. Ready to move on from that? I went to the select board meeting 2 Thursdays ago now to confirm with the select board what days they wanted. I emailed you the days that the select board chose and I agreed to them, and I sent them out to you. So we have, informational meetings that are on the schedule for Monday, February 26th at Town Hall in Danville. And we also have, the day before the meeting, and that's at North Danville, which is the 4th. Both of those meetings are already warned. Both of those meetings are information only. We'll conduct no business. If you're available, please come to those meetings. If you're not available, we understand that's during school vacation. Obviously, I need you at town meeting. But in the meantime, if you're not there on the 3rd, if you're not there on the 26th, and it's because you're out of town or because you're busy, I understand. If you're not there on the 4th, we'll be there sitting in front of the people and talking to them about this budget, about the situation with the budget, about Act 127, about our plans for the year. And then on the 5th, we'll sit in front of the town at 1 o'clock. So they're all informational. They're not, there's no minutes that we don't need a quorum. That's the main thing. So everybody has those dates down, whether on their calendar, whether they're going or not.
Yep.
Any questions about those meetings?
will there be a meet candidates section in there?
I don't moderate those meetings, but sure, I think candidates will have an opportunity if they'd like to stand up and,
Okay.
and say some, often candidates are reticent at the first one, but the information gets drawn out of them in North Danville.
Okay. Yep.
But
Perfect.
there's no requirement to say that you're running until you're nominated on the floor.
Right.
All right. So that's all I had for tonight. On this one, the next thing on the agenda is public input.
Anybody online?
I think it's Bruce.
Okay.
I think Bruce is online.
I think it's Bruce. So public input, anybody wants it. But I'm not gonna wait around too long. Hearing none,
Bruce, did you wanna say anything?
I think it's okay.
Enable talking, he's not talking.
All right, yeah, that's good. We're gonna move on from that.
Can you hear me now?
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay, so
I don't know.
I've moved on from public input. We'll talk.
Okay.
I'm moving on to future agenda items. Okay, future agenda items, we're gonna talk probably again about NES. We have to talk about the budget. But that's tentative. In the, our next meeting that's official will be a reorganizational meeting, and we're gonna need to schedule that one. So I need to talk to you about scheduling our next meeting. I also need to talk to you about confirming the schedule on our, committee meetings.
Right, we have a committee meeting coming up, actually.
Do we have a reason to meet? I have,
No, we
I am
don't even meet.
inundated with meetings
Yeah,
myself,
and
and
there's
I
no-
wouldn't wanna call anybody in just to
think
meet.
Until we meet with
Until we meet with
Truex Cullen.
Truex and
Right.
get a plan. So do you know what day was that
That
on?
was the,
The 8th, I thought.
it was the 8th.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
two-
Thursday. So
That's 2 days from now.
Yeah,
away.
Yeah.
that's 2 days away.
I have a meeting on the 8th.
So we'll cancel that.
So we're gonna go ahead and not meet on the 8th.
All right, I'm gonna write.
And that one had been tentative with the group anyway.
Mhm.
We've been reluctant to
Yeah.
schedule that one with the group, and
Yeah.
tentative to schedule that with the group, so we don't have anything to report. I'll send an email out tonight to that committee saying our meeting on the 8th is not happening.
It would be nice to meet with Truex Collins before town meeting if we can, just to have like some momentum would be
We have-
helpful.
Yeah, we'll try,
Okay,
we'll try. Because we got
So
available.
Clayton, in terms of your information, your reorganization meeting. Town meeting's on the 5th, the 6th and 7th are open. If you wanna pick that Wednesday or Thursday following town meeting.
You guys wanna meet on Thursday, the 7th?
I work until 7.
Do you guys wanna meet on Thursday, the 7th at 7:30 to reorganize?
I might not be
What
with you
about-
guys at that point.
What about Wednesday, the 6th?
I work until 7.
So both those days, Dave works until 6,
7.
7.
I can do it on Zoom from the truck at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody have any, what if? How do you guys feel about meeting at 7:30? Awesome. It's a long meeting. So it is, the reorganizational meeting is long because we have to go through all of the machinations of reassigning committees. And reassigning, if we have new members, we have to onboard new members. So if it's not the 6th or the 7th to 7:30, then I need a day and a time.
There's the
So-
building committee next week at the 14th. Is what's currently scheduled.
So the next possible time for me would be the 13th. Or the 14th.
What did you say, Sarah? It's on the 14th?
We scheduled a building committee on the 14th.
March 14th.
Same deal on Wednesdays and
Yeah,
Thursdays.
3 people down right now.
Okay,
If we're gonna, yeah.
so I think that let's go back to the 7th. And let's plan on reorganizing, and we'll plan on Dave not being present until he can get there. 6 o'clock meeting. And we'll
If you
give
want
him
jobs.
many committee assignments.
Oh, yeah.
6 o'clock and what date, Clayton?
Is that okay with you?
Uh,
You get to miss
What-
a meeting? Asking if you would
what
like to
day?
miss a meeting. 7th, the Thursday, the 7th,
Okay,
at 6 o'clock.
Oh, it says,
If we're gonna go without Dave, we can go without Dave.
all right.
We're gonna
Okay.
start without. Dave. Hold on, son.
Might not need me.
I'll keep you posted.
Your term, whose term is up, Dave?
Mine?
What? So, you wanna, I guess, Dave's 3-year term is up, and the 2 1-year seats are up.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's that meeting. The 8th is canceled, and we're gonna keep the meeting on for the, on the 14th. So for our next meeting for the building committee will be March the 14th. 314 building. Okay, and that's
And
that.
our next regular board meeting is,
Just now rescheduled for the March the 7th.
oh, that was March, oh, right.
We
okay,
have to
the real-
reorganize
yeah,
because we
yeah.
can't meet on town meeting,
Okay, gotcha.
because we won't know the answers and people won't be sworn in.
That is the reorganization meeting, okay.
We shouldn't put anything else that needs a lot of explaining on that meeting.
Right.
Yeah, there's no other business for that one, right?
There will be, if any other business has to also be conducted on that meeting.
Right.
It'll be a special meeting, it'll be our
It'll be a
regular
regular
meeting.
meeting.
Any business that needs conducting will be conducted, but none can be conducted until after we organize.
All right.
Keep it simple.
And that takes about 30 minutes to start.
It's fine.
Okay. Future agenda items, we're good. Next meeting date, we're good. All that's left on this agenda is adjournment.
I would make a motion to adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn.
I will second.
I have a second on a motion to adjourn. All in favor of adjourning at 6:32 PM, please say aye.
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 Rocket, we're out.
Wow.
Meeting